grace first.
You know better. Bless this food.
No.
Please, I'm begging.
The movie, set in the late 19th century Western America, opens with a family sitting together for breakfast in their humble home in Texas. The father, Michael Love, leads the grace when they hear an unexpected knocking on their door. Walking towards the door, he wonders who it might be at this hour. As soon as he sees the man in front of the door, Michael is shocked. He is Rufus Buck, a cowboy just like Michael used to be. Michael seems to know that he's in danger and why the man has come to his home. Rufus sits on the family's dining table while Michael pleads to resolve their issue alone, away from his family. Instead, Rufus aims his two gilded guns at Michael's son, Nat, and his wife, Elena. Another man with a scorpion tattoo on his hand comes to hold down Nat's shoulders. Despite Michael's tireless begging to just kill him if he wants revenge, Rufus shoots Elena. He then shoots Michael, who charges at him in his grief. Witnessing both his parents being murdered, Nat can do nothing but scream. He continues to be held down as Rufus takes out his razor to carve a cross in the middle of the boy's forehead. Many years later in Salinas, Texas, a man named Jesus Cortez comes into a small church in priest's clothing. He calls out to Father Esparza, about to extort some money since he's a cowboy bandit. Instead of Esparza, however, it's another cowboy standing in front of the altar. The man says he's there to kill a man with a scorpion tattooed on his hand, which is Cortez. When he takes off his hat, Cortez is shocked to see that it's Nat Love, all grown up. Nat shoots first during the quick draw for their lives, successfully killing Cortez and getting part of his revenge. He tells Father Esparza, who was hiding all this time, to take Cortez's body to the sheriff's office for some bounty cash.
Turn his body in and you'll get $5,000 for your church.
Somewhere else, a gang of cowboys wearing red hoods ride away after robbing a bank. Hiding in the canyons is Bill Pickett, part of Nat Love's gang. He aims and shoots at the Crimson Hood gang, hitting a few of them and causing them to stop with 3 members remaining. Another member of Nat's gang, Jim Beckworth, has a snarky back and forth before quickly killing 2 more members.
Mama used to say, Jim is such a sweet boy. You're not sweet. I'm sweet. You're not sweet. I'm sweet.
The last one standing, Monroe Grimes, pretends to be dead, while Bill and Jim argue about robbing the bank robbers. He slowly tries to pull up his gun, but Jim's keen eye spots the movement, immediately disarming Monroe with 1 shot. Monroe says that they're making a death wish because they're robbing Rufus Buck's money. Rufus is supposedly in prison for life, but Monroe says he's getting out soon. In Douglastown, Nat arrives at an establishment called Stagecoach Mary's Saloon. He is welcomed at the door by a tomboy woman named Cuffy, who tells him to put his gun away, as it's the house rules. While Nat doesn't mind, 2 other men who came after him do. So Cuffy beats them up and orders the other workers to drag them away. On stage, the owner of the establishment, Mary Fields, is singing. She notices Nat's presence, and after the song finishes, she approaches him. Nat asks if she's still mad at him, which she responds with a passionate kiss before telling him to leave.
I said leave.
However, Cuffy tells him which room Mary is in. He talks about wanting to settle with Mary since he's done with his revenge, Cortez being his last target. Mary says that Rufus is still alive, but Nat thinks life in prison is a worse fate than death for Rufus. Right when Nat and Mary are planning to have some fun, Pickett knocks on the door. He says there's something important Nat must see. It turns out that they had brought Monroe there to be questioned. At gunpoint, Monroe says that Rufus is still in prison, but he will be freed of his sentence tomorrow and he'll be heading to Redwood. Nat decides to spare Monroe's life and tells him to run away. The next morning, Rufus's gang, led by Cherokee Bill and Trudy Smith, forces a train to stop in its tracks before shooting the driver and hijacking it. One young officer points his gun at Cherokee, but to save the lives of the other passengers, he is forced to drop it and walk towards the last train car. The door is locked, but inside, many officers are pointing their gun at the door. It turns out that the boy's father is the prison's chief warden who is inside the locked car. Trudy shoots the boy's leg twice, and not wanting more harm for his son, the warden opens the door. Trudy shows the warden official papers granting Rufus's freedom in exchange for killing the warden and his men who had done crimes to civilians. In fear, the warden unlocks the door to Rufus's transport cell, finally freeing the man after so long.
Who here can drive a train?
Everybody but him.
Meanwhile, in Mary's saloon, Nat is having a somber drink when the marshal of the area, Bass Reeves, comes into the establishment. He sits on Nat's table, and the air is tense because Nat is a wanted man. Bass indicates that he knew about Nat's gang intercepting the Crimson Hoods after their robbery, and how the Crimson Hoods are joining the new gang Rufus is assembling. Suddenly, Nat throws his drink on Bass, and the marshal aims his gun at Nat. He orders Cuffy to handcuff Nat as Bass is planning to bring him to Fort Smith to be tried for his crimes.
Y'all enjoy the rest of the evening.
With their leader, Rufus's gang head towards the town of Redwood. Rufus built the small town with his money, and it has grown considerably since his detainment years ago. They meet the gang's accountant to ask for the $25,000 that's supposed to be sent by the Crimson Hoods after their robbery. The accountant tells them about the Crimson Hoods being robbed on the way, and now they don't even have much money left. This surprises Rufus because they should have much more than that, and he figures out who spent all his money. The mayor and sheriff of Redwood, Wiley Esco, is eating steak in his house while monologuing about driving Rufus away from town. A knock startles him. It's one of his bodyguards, aiming a gun at him and saying that Rufus wants to meet him outside. Wiley was one of Rufus's men back then. He entrusted him with the town's upkeep while he was in prison, but Wiley had become a corrupt mayor. They start fighting barehanded until Rufus beats Wiley up using the back of his gun. He spares Wiley's life, but orders him to leave the town immediately.
I want you to vacate immediately or die where you lay.
After the commotion, Trudy asks why Rufus chose to leave Redwood to Wiley and not her. Rufus says that Wiley was loyal, and he trusts nobody else but Trudy and Cherokee to manage the gang members in person. They now need lots of money to keep Redwood from being bought by white businesses, so they gather up the residents for an announcement. They want to tax the residents for $50,000 in total, saying it's to prevent their houses and businesses from being bought by outsiders. The poor residents protest because they don't have that kind of money. One man even starts doubting Rufus's authority, which makes Rufus come out to explain himself. He says that he didn't build Redwood for himself, and that the man is an enemy of progress. He calmly asks the man's name before shooting him point blank. Scared for their life, the residents are willing to pay $15,000 because that's all they have. So Rufus forbids anyone from leaving until he gets the money. Back to Nat's fate, Marshal Bass suddenly stops the jail wagon in the middle of nowhere before telling him to get out. It turns out that the two agreed to work together to exterminate Rufus and his gang. The theatrics in the saloon are to prevent Nat's gang from following him on his dangerous quest for revenge. But alas, his crew comes anyway, including Mary, who used to be part of the gang, and also Cuffy. They're adamant in helping Nat get his revenge, despite Nat himself shooing them. Eventually, he gives in, and they all ride towards Redwood. On their way, they ambush Wiley, who has been cast out from Redwood. Bass knows that he was part of Rufus's gang and was the sheriff and mayor of Redwood, so they arrest Wiley for information.
Ain't the enemy of my enemy, my friend.
Wiley says they need a plan if they don't want to all die in Redwood for nothing. Since Wiley also wants Rufus gone, he tells the gang that Rufus needs money to save Redwood. Nat lets him go, and that night, Mary suggests that she should go undercover into Redwood ahead of the gang for some intel. Everyone knows that Mary is expanding her business by buying up saloons, so she's going to offer to buy Trudy's saloon to infiltrate the town in plain sight. Nat doesn't like the idea, and instead, he proposes to Mary with his parents' wedding ring. However, Mary refuses, saying that she'll leave Nat for good once their final target is dead. But for now, she indulges herself with her past lover. Mary then heads to Redwood, where she is stopped by Trudy. Mary says that she has an offer for Rufus and wants to meet him in person, so Trudy brings her into her saloon. To Rufus, she explains her offer to buy up the establishment for a good price, but she slipped up about knowing that Rufus's money was stolen by Nat's gang.
You know who you are.
This raises Rufus's suspicions, as news of the robbery hasn't gone far. Figuring out that Mary is helping Nat take his revenge, Rufus orders Trudy to hit Mary unconscious. It's already sunrise when she wakes up, tied to a chair in Redwood's sheriff's office. Trudy orders her men to choke her, but decides to keep her alive to lure Nat, who has been worried as Mary fails to return to their camp. Suspecting the worst, Nat and the gang heads to Redwood. Nat is slightly relieved to see Mary still alive, so he tells Trudy that he wants to meet Rufus in person. Trudy says he can, but only if he stays while the rest of his men leave the town. After some consideration, Nat agrees and tells his crew to back down. Before leaving, Jim tries to have a quick draw duel with Cherokee to contest the title of fastest shooter in the West. However, Cherokee dismisses his dare.
It all comes down to who's alive and who's dead. Good night.
That night, they tie Nat's hands to the ceiling and beat him up in front of Mary. Rufus enters the room and orders Nat's hands to be cut loose. He says that he gave Nat the scar, so he'd recognize Nat when he finally comes to find Rufus. Rufus wants Nat to return the money they stole and an extra $10,000 for interest. He knows that Nat doesn't rob banks nor kill innocent civilians, and that's exactly why he wants Nat to rob a bank for the money. So, Nat is let go and returns to his crew with Rufus's demands. He knows if he fails to deliver the money, Mary will die. He's planning to rob a bank in Maysville, which is a predominantly white town. Nat will only bring Jim and Cuffy, and he wants Cuffy to wear a dress as a disguise.
Hell no.
Mary.
She reluctantly agrees, and the three head to Maysville. The white residents stare at them as Nat pretends to be Cuffy's husband who's accompanying her to the bank. Cuffy asks the teller to make a withdrawal, and while she's getting laughed at,
I'd like to make a withdrawal.
You have to have an account.
I'm not talking about that kind of withdrawal.
she takes her gun and aims it at the teller. Nat also aims his gun at the security and other clients. They successfully get the money and escape the shootout that ensues without killing any civilians. Wiley suddenly shows up as Nat and the others are counting their loot. He's carrying weapons and ammunition for them to use in preparation for fighting Rufus's gang, all taken from Rufus's stash around the forest. It's time for the Nat Love gang to return Rufus's money. Gunmen and snipers are aiming at Marshall Bass as he drives a carriage alone into Redwood, while Rufus watches from inside the building. Bill is also situated on top of a roof with his gun aimed. Bass says that the money is in the carriage, but he wants to walk with Cherokee. As he talks, he gives a signal for Bill to shoot the carriage, causing a huge explosion. This is to shock all the townsfolk into evacuating, so that there's only Rufus's men and Nat's men in the town. Nat shows up on a horse shortly after, with Cuffy riding a wagon with the promised amount of money and a pile of dynamite on top. Cherokee wants to inspect the money, but Nat wants Mary to be brought out first, or Cuffy will shoot the dynamite. Afraid of losing the money, they comply, and Trudy shows up with Mary in tow. Cherokee suddenly points a gun at Nat from behind as he walks up to Mary. However, Jim is right behind Cherokee, gun pointed at the man. When Cherokee sees this, he challenges Jim to a quick draw battle.
5.
But before the countdown is over, Cherokee cheats and shoots Jim in the head. Watching from the rooftop, Bill is furious, and a shootout ensues. Nat orders Bill to blow up the money, which he does. Seeing the money burn, Rufus finally leaves his post, and Trudy orders the men to kill Mary. Cuffy saves her by the bell, and the shootout between the two gangs continues. Nat gives Mary her shotgun and the fight back to back. She decides that she wants to kill Trudy, so they split up.
Let's go.
As the fight continues outside, in a building, Mary fights Trudy, who's only using a knife as she's out of ammo. Mary manages to smack Trudy with her gun, but outside, Nat gets shot on his shoulder by none other than Monroe. Monroe is about to shoot Nat dead, when Bass shoots Monroe's head first. He grabs the injured man to take shelter behind a carriage. Meanwhile, Wiley sneaks into the house where Rufus's men are shooting from. He lights a dynamite and throws it at them. Rufus descends down the stairs to meet Wiley once again, revealing that he knew Wiley is the one who turned him into the police years ago.
I always knew it was you who gave me up.
Wiley tries to apologize, but Rufus quickly shoots the dynamite in his jacket to kill him. Outside, more Crimson Hood members arrive to shoot at Nat. The pain in his shoulder is overwhelming. But Nat is reminded about how Rufus barged into his childhood home to kill his parents. This tragic memory fuels the adrenaline he needs to keep on fighting, and he manages to kill all the Crimson Hoods. Inside the house, Bill manages to climb in through a window and finds Cuffy, who's reloading her gun. When Bill is kissing his good luck coin for taking a bullet, he's shot from the back by Cherokee. Cherokee tells the dying Bill to not be afraid before shooting him once more. Cuffy is angry because Cherokee didn't kill Bill honorably, and by a quick draw, she manages to shoot Cherokee in the neck as she's faster.
I lost my...
With nobody but Rufus left, Nat allows some time to mourn his dead friends. He enters Rufus's house alone, finding his target sitting alone on a chair, a bottle of whiskey in front of him. Nat tells him to pick up his guns for a duel, but instead, Rufus asks if Nat's father was a good man. Nat says yes, and Rufus goes on to talk about how his father was a cowboy outlaw like them, who likes to beat up Rufus and his mother. One day, Rufus' mother attacked her husband to protect Rufus, which leads to her death in his hands. Rufus' father left without a trace, and despite looking for many years, he couldn't find the man to get his revenge. When he finally did, it seems like his father had become a new and honest man with a wife and child.
I couldn't kill my brother.
You lying. You lying.
Killing our father was retribution.
My father. My mother.
Nat doesn't believe it, aiming his gun at Rufus and calling him a liar. Rufus says that letting Nat live and seeing him become what their father tried to run away from was the true revenge. He thinks Nat can surpass him as an outlaw because, unlike Rufus, he can kill his own brother.
It's time to take your revenge, Nathaniel Buck. Take your revenge.
Both in tears, Rufus tells Nat to kill him, but Nat refuses. After some provocation, After finally getting his revenge, Nat seems to grieve his brother's death to a degree. He grabs his engagement ring for Mary while fixing up Rufus's body. Nat leaves the house and cries into Mary's embrace. It has been an emotional day for them all. Later, they bury Bill and Jim, but they also create a grave for Nat beside them. It seems like they want to fake Nat's death with the help of Marshal Bass. Bass will return to his post, while Cuffy seems to be aiming for a deputy or sheriff position in his footsteps. She says goodbye to her ex-employer Mary before Mary leaves on her horse to continue her journey together with Nat. The movie ends with a silhouette looking at them in the distance.
If you want more movie explainers like this, comment the next movie name. And subscribe to Kip's Movie Explain at K.Movie.E for more. Please visit to our Instagram and Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching till the end.